The human mind does strange things when it thinks it's running out of time. Mine decided to replay every Christmas song I'd ever heard, on loop, while I was bleeding out in the snow 3 miles from anywhere. But then one of those songs became real. And that's when everything changed. Let me back up. My name is Marcus. I'm 42 years old. And what I'm about to tell you happened on December 22nd, 2017. 7 years ago now. But I remember it like it was this morning. Some experiences burn themselves into you so deeply that time doesn't really touch them. They just stay there, vivid and immediate, no matter how many years pass. I was living in northern Minnesota at the time, working as a wildlife photographer. It was a solitary life, which suited me fine. I'd gone through a rough divorce 2 years earlier, lost custody of my daughter Emily in a way that felt like losing a limb, and I'd basically withdrawn from the world. Photography was my excuse to spend weeks alone in the wilderness, which was exactly where I wanted to be, or where I thought I wanted to be. That December, I'd gotten a commission from a nature magazine to photograph winter wildlife in the Boundary Waters. Good money, tight deadline, and a chance to spend Christmas alone instead of sitting in my empty apartment thinking about how Emily was celebrating with her mom and the new stepdad she apparently adored. So yeah, I took the job. I should have paid more attention to the weather forecast, should have told someone exactly where I'd be, should have brought better emergency equipment, should have done a lot of things differently. But hindsight is perfect, and foresight is usually just wishful thinking dressed up as planning. I'd been out for 3 days, camping and shooting photos, and I'd gotten some incredible stuff. A family of foxes, an owl in flight, fresh wolf tracks in pristine snow, the kind of images that make your career. I was actually feeling good, which should have been my first warning that something was about to go wrong. On the morning of the 22nd, I decided to check out a frozen lake about 3 miles from my camp. I'd seen deer tracks heading that direction the day before, and I thought I might catch them at dawn. So I packed light, just my camera gear and basic supplies, figuring I'd be back by noon. The hike to the lake was beautiful. That crisp, silent cold that makes every sound seem impossibly clear. Fresh snow from the night before covering everything in white. The sun just starting to rise, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. It was the kind of morning that reminds you why you chose this life, why you pushed everyone away so you could have moments like this. Except I was lying to myself. I hadn't chosen this life. I'd run to it because I didn't know how to deal with the life I'd lost. But I didn't think about that then. I was focused on the photography, on capturing the light, on being present in that moment. Which is ironic because I'd spent 2 years being anywhere but present in my actual life. I reached the lake around 7 a.m. It was frozen solid, covered in a thin layer of fresh snow, absolutely pristine. And there, right at the edge of the tree line, was a small herd of deer. 6 of them, including a massive buck that had to be at least 10 points. I got my camera ready and started shooting. The light was perfect, the composition was perfect. Everything was lining up exactly how I wanted. I moved slowly, trying to get closer without spoking them. That's when the ice gave way. I didn't even realize I'd walked onto the lake. The snow coverage made everything look the same, and I'd been so focused on the deer that I hadn't paid attention to where I was stepping. 1 second I was on solid ground. The next I was crashing through ice into water so cold it felt like being electrocuted. The shock of it knocked the air out of my lungs. I went under completely, camera and all, into darkness that was somehow colder than cold. For a few seconds, I couldn't even process what was happening. My body just seized up, every muscle contracting at once. Then survival instinct kicked in. I fought my way back to the surface, gasping, trying to grab onto the ice, but it kept breaking under my weight. Every time I tried to pull myself up, another section would crack and collapse. I don't know how long I struggled. Probably only a minute or 2, but it felt like forever. Finally, I managed to get my elbows onto a section of ice that held, and I pulled myself out. I crawled away from the hole on my stomach, spreading my weight until I was sure I was on solid ice again. Then I just lay there, soaking wet, in 20-degree weather, trying to breathe. I knew I was in trouble, serious trouble. Hypothermia doesn't wait. In conditions like that, wet clothes and freezing temperatures, you have maybe 30 minutes before your body starts shutting down. Maybe less. I forced myself to stand up. My camera was gone, somewhere at the bottom of the lake. My phone was in my pocket, also soaked, definitely not working. My pack was on the shore where I'd left it, 50 yards away. I stumbled toward it, my clothes already starting to freeze. By the time I reached my pack, my fingers were so numb I could barely work the zippers. I pulled out my emergency blanket and wrapped it around myself, but I knew it wasn't enough. I needed to get back to camp. 3 miles through the forest, in wet clothes and freezing temperatures. I started walking. What else could I do? The first mile was bad. I was shaking violently, my teeth chattering so hard I thought they might crack. My wet clothes felt like ice against my skin. Every step was an effort. The second mile was worse. The shaking had stopped, which I knew was a bad sign. It meant my body was giving up on trying to warm itself. My thinking was getting foggy. I kept losing track of where I was going, having to stop and orient myself. Somewhere during that second mile I fell, just tripped over my own feet and went down face first in the snow. It took me a long time to get back up, longer than it should have. When I did, I realized I'd left my pack behind. I turned around to get it, but I couldn't see it anywhere. Had I walked that far, or had I been going in circles? I decided to keep moving without it. The pack didn't matter. Getting to camp mattered, except I wasn't sure which direction camp was anymore. The trees all looked the same. The snow had covered my tracks from that morning. The sun was hidden behind clouds, so I couldn't orient by that. I pulled out my compass, but my hands were shaking too badly to read it properly. That's when the fear really hit me. Not panic exactly, something quieter and more certain. The understanding that I was lost, hypothermic and probably going to perish out here, 3 miles from camp. Less than a day's walk from civilization. And I was going to perish anyway because I'd been careless and stupid and too focused on getting the perfect shot. I thought about Emily, about how she'd hear about this, about how she'd grow up knowing her dad perished alone in the woods at Christmas because he was too broken to spend the holiday with people who loved him. That thought made me angry. Not at myself, at the situation, at the unfairness of it. I'd survived a divorce, survived losing my daughter, survived 2 years of depression and isolation. I was not going to let a frozen lake take me out. I started walking again. I picked a direction and committed to it. Probably wasn't the right direction, but standing still meant freezing. So wrong direction was better than no direction. I don't know how long I walked. Time had become elastic, stretching and compressing in ways that didn't make sense. Sometimes I'd look up and be surprised that I'd moved at all. Other times I'd take what felt like one step and suddenly be in a completely different part of the forest. My mind was playing tricks on me. I kept seeing things that weren't there. A cabin in the distance that disappeared when I got closer. A path that turned out to be just shadows on the snow. My ex-wife standing between the trees, watching me with the same disappointed expression she'd worn the day she left. I fell again, and this time, I couldn't get up. I lay there in the snow, and part of me just wanted to stay there, to close my eyes and let it happen. It would be peaceful, probably. Just drifting off to sleep in the quiet forest. No more pain, no more loneliness, no more waking up every morning in an empty apartment wondering what I was even living for. But I thought about Emily again, about her getting a phone call, about her crying at my funeral, about her growing up thinking I'd given up. I couldn't do that to her, so I tried to get up. My arms wouldn't work properly, my legs wouldn't cooperate. I managed to roll onto my side, and that's when I heard it. Music. Faint, distant, but unmistakable. Someone was singing. A Christmas song. At first I thought it was another hallucination, my brain creating something comforting as it shut down. But the music didn't fade. It stayed consistent, getting slightly louder. Silent Night. Someone was singing Silent Night. I turned my head, trying to figure out where it was coming from. Through the trees, maybe 50 yards away, I could see movement. A figure walking through the forest. I tried to call out, but my voice wouldn't work. Just a croak that wouldn't have carried more than a few feet. The figure kept walking. They were going to pass by without seeing me. I tried again to stand, managed to get to my knees and waved my arms. The singing stopped. Then the figure changed direction, heading toward me. As they got closer, I could make out details. A woman, middle-aged, wearing a heavy winter coat and a bright red scarf. She was carrying a basket, of all things. Like she was out for a casual winter stroll instead of hiking through miles of wilderness. "Oh my goodness," she said when she reached me. "Are you all right?" I tried to answer, but my mouth wouldn't form words properly. I just shook my head. She set down her basket and knelt beside me. "You're hypothermic. We need to get you warm. Can you walk?" I didn't think I could, but she helped me to my feet, and I discovered that with her support, I could manage a stumbling forward motion. "There's a cabin about 10 minutes from here," she said. "My family's place. Come on, stay with me now. Keep moving." 10 minutes felt like an hour. She talked the entire time, keeping me engaged, not letting me drift. She asked my name, where I was from, what I was doing out here. I answered in single syllables when I could manage it at all. "I'm Caroline," she said. "My family and I come up here every Christmas. It's tradition. My grandfather built the cabin back in the 50s. The cabin appeared through the trees exactly when she said it would. Small, rustic, with smoke rising from a stone chimney. Warm yellow light glowing in the windows. She helped me up the steps and through the door into blessed warmth. "Richard," she called. "Kids, I need help here." A man appeared from another room, followed by 2 teenagers. They moved quickly, efficiently, getting my wet clothes off, wrapping me in blankets, sitting me by the fire. Someone put a cup of hot liquid in my hands. Someone else was rubbing my feet, trying to restore circulation. "What happened?" Richard asked. "Fell through the ice," I managed. "At the lake." "The lake? That's 3 miles from here. How long have you been walking?" I didn't know, hours maybe. Time had stopped making sense. "You're lucky Caroline found you," Richard said. "Another hour and you wouldn't have made it." I looked at Caroline. She was making more hot drinks in the kitchen area, humming softly. The same tune she'd been singing when I heard her. "Silent Night." "Why were you out there?" I asked. "In the woods?" She smiled. "Gathering pine boughs for decorations. We do it every year. The kids think I'm crazy for going out in the cold, but I love it. The peace, the quiet, the beauty of the forest in winter." "I heard you singing," I said. That's how I knew someone was there. "Oh, good," she said. "I always sing when I'm out gathering. Richard says I'm going to scare away all the wildlife, but I can't help it. Christmas songs just feel right this time of year." The teenagers, a boy and a girl who looked about 15 and 17, brought me more blankets and sat nearby, asking questions about photography and wildlife and what it was like living in the wilderness. They were kind, genuinely interested, treating me like a guest instead of an idiot who'd nearly frozen himself. As I warmed up and my head cleared, I got a better look at the cabin. It was cozy, decorated for Christmas with pine garlands and handmade ornaments. There was a small tree in the corner, covered in lights, presents wrapped underneath, stockings hanging from the mantel. It looked like something out of a Christmas card, the kind of scene I'd been avoiding for 2 years because it hurt too much to see families being happy together when mine had fallen apart. "Do you have family expecting you?" Richard asked. "Someone we should call to let them know you're all right?" I shook my head. "No one's expecting me. I was alone out here." Caroline and Richard exchanged a look. The kind of look parents give each other when they're communicating without words. "Well, you're not alone now," Caroline said, "and you're certainly not going anywhere tonight. You'll stay here, warm up properly, and we'll figure out getting you back to civilization in the morning." "I don't want to intrude on your Christmas," I said. "You're not intruding," the teenage girl said. Her name was Sophie, I'd learned. "Mom always says Christmas is about making room. That's literally the whole point of the story, right? There was no room at the inn, so they made room in the stable." "Sophie's in her theological phase," the boy, whose name was James, said with a grin. "Everything relates back to deeper meaning." It does, though, Sophie insisted. Christmas is about unexpected arrivals and making space for people who need it. So this is actually very on brand. I couldn't help but smile. Despite everything, despite nearly perishing an hour ago, I was smiling at a teenage girl's earnest interpretation of Christmas theology. We sat around the fire for hours that afternoon. They fed me soup and bread and hot chocolate. We talked about everything and nothing. They asked about my photography, and I told them about some of the places I'd been, the animals I'd photographed. They told me about their lives in Minneapolis, about school and friends and their plans after graduation. Caroline and Richard had been married 23 years. They'd started the tradition of spending Christmas at the cabin when the kids were little, and they'd kept it up even as the kids got older and less interested in family traditions. They complain every year about being dragged up here, Caroline said, but once we arrive, they love it. No phones, no internet, just family time. This year was different, though, Sophie said. This year we actually wanted to come. I think we're all just tired of being so connected all the time. It's nice to disconnect. I understood that. I'd been disconnected for 2 years, but in a different way. I'd cut myself off from people, from relationships, from anything that might hurt. But that wasn't the same as what they were describing. They were choosing to be present with each other. I'd been choosing to be absent from everything. As evening approached, Caroline started preparing dinner. She wouldn't let me help, insisting I needed to rest and warm up thoroughly. So I sat by the fire and watched this family move around each other with the easy familiarity of people who genuinely enjoyed being together. It hurt to watch, not in a bitter way, but in a way that made me realize what I'd been missing, what I'd given up on when my marriage ended. During dinner, which was some kind of amazing stew that Caroline called her Christmas Eve specialty, Richard asked me about my family. You said no one's expecting you. Does that mean you're spending Christmas alone? I nodded. It's just easier that way. Easier than what? Sophie asked. Easier than being around families, around people who have what I don't anymore. The words came out more honestly than I'd intended. There was a moment of silence. Then James said, "What happened, if you don't mind me asking?" I found myself telling them about the divorce, about losing custody of Emily, about how I'd basically run away from my life because I didn't know how to live in it anymore. How old is your daughter? Caroline asked gently. She's 9 now, almost 10. Does she know where you are? That you're safe? She doesn't know I'm here at all. Her mom has full custody. I get supervised visitation twice a month, but Emily doesn't really want to see me. She's got a new life now, a new family. I'm just the dad who left. You didn't leave, though, Sophie said. From what you're describing, you were forced out. I stopped fighting for her, I said. When the custody battle got ugly, when my ex's lawyer started painting me as unstable and unreliable, I just gave up. Let them have what they wanted. So yeah, I left. Maybe not physically at first, but I left. Richard leaned back in his chair. Can I tell you something? When James was 6, I went through a really dark period. Lost my job, went into a depression, started drinking too much. Caroline could have left, probably should have, but she didn't, and I hated her for it. Richard, Caroline said softly. No, let me say this. I hated her for staying because it meant I had to face what I was doing instead of just disappearing into my misery. She made me get help, made me show up, made me be present even when I wanted to check out completely. And I'm only here, only the person I am now, because she wouldn't let me run away. He looked at me directly. What I'm saying is, running away doesn't solve anything. It just means you're absent from your own life while it happens without you. Your daughter is 9. She needs her dad, even if she doesn't know how to say that right now, even if it's hard and uncomfortable and painful. I felt something crack inside my chest, not breaking but opening, like I'd been holding something clenched so tight for so long that I'd forgotten it was there. I don't know how to get back, I said quietly. I don't know how to be in her life when her mom barely tolerates me, and Emily doesn't want to see me. You start small, Caroline said. You show up for those visits, even when it's awkward. You send cards and letters even if she doesn't respond. You let her know consistently that you're there, that you're not going anywhere. Kids need that certainty, especially from their dads. We talked late into the night, about parenthood and failure and second chances, about how the hardest part of love is staying present when everything in you wants to run, about how healing happens slowly, in small steps, not in grand gestures. At some point, Sophie brought out a guitar and started playing Christmas songs. James joined in on vocals, and they were actually good, really good. Caroline and Richard sat close together on the couch, her head on his shoulder, and I realized this was what I'd been running from. Not happy families, just the reminder that I'd failed at creating one. But maybe failure wasn't permanent. Maybe it was just a chapter, not the whole story. I slept deeply that night, in a sleeping bag on the floor near the fire. The kind of sleep that comes when your body has been through trauma and needs to repair itself. I dreamed about Emily, about teaching her to use a camera, something I'd always meant to do but never got around to before everything fell apart. In the morning, Christmas Eve morning, Richard helped me find my way back to my camp. It took about 2 hours of hiking, and when we got there, everything was exactly as I'd left it. My tent, my gear, my truck parked at the trailhead another mile beyond the camp. "What will you do now?" Richard asked as we packed up my camp. "Go home, I guess. Try to figure out what comes next." "Will you see your daughter for Christmas?" I shook my head. "She's with her mom and her stepdad. They have plans." "Have you asked?" "Asked what?" "If you could see her, even for an hour, even just to drop off a present." I hadn't. I'd assumed it wasn't possible, wasn't wanted. But Richard's question made me realize I'd been making assumptions instead of asking. Before we parted ways, Richard gave me a piece of paper with his phone number. "Call if you need anything, seriously, and let me know how it goes with your daughter." I drove back to my apartment in a daze. The whole experience felt surreal. Falling through the ice, nearly perishing, being rescued by a singing woman gathering pine boughs, spending the evening with a family who treated me like I belonged there. When I got home, I did something I hadn't done in months. I called my ex-wife. "Marcus?" She sounded surprised. "Is everything okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine. I know this is last minute, but I was wondering if I could see Emily tomorrow, on Christmas. Just for a little bit, I have something for her." There was a long pause. "Marcus, we talked about this. The schedule, I know, but it's Christmas, and I'm her dad. I'm asking, please. An hour. I'll come to you, whatever works. I just want to see her." Another pause. Then, "Let me talk to her, I'll call you back." She called back 30 minutes later. "Emily says okay, but just for an hour. And you're coming here. We're not disrupting our day." "Thank you," I said. "Thank you." I spent the rest of Christmas Eve putting together a package for Emily. I'd gotten photos printed from before the divorce, pictures of us together that I knew she didn't have, pictures of her as a baby, as a toddler, pictures of the three of us when we were still a family. I also included a disposable camera with a note, "Let's take new pictures together. Love, Dad." Christmas morning, I showed up at my ex-wife's house at exactly the time we'd agreed on. My hands were shaking worse than they had been from hypothermia. Emily answered the door. She'd grown. It had only been a month since I'd last seen her, but she looked older somehow. She was wearing pajamas with snowmen on them, and her hair was messy from sleep. "Hi," I said. "Hi," she said back, then quieter. "Mom said you almost didn't make it home from your trip." I'd told my ex about falling through the ice, about getting lost. I'd needed to explain why I looked like I'd been through something. "Yeah," I said. "It was scary, but I made it." "I'm glad," Emily said. And the way she said it, small and sincere, broke something open in me. We sat in the living room, awkward at first, but then I showed her the pictures. We went through them one by one, and I told her stories about each one, about the day she was born, about her first steps, about the time we went to the zoo, and she insisted on wearing her princess dress. "I don't remember that," she said, looking at a picture of herself at 3, wearing a pink dress and rain boots, pointing at elephants. "You were pretty young." But you were so excited. You made us go back to the elephants 3 times. She smiled, a real smile. Then she looked at the disposable camera. Can we take pictures now? Absolutely. We went outside and I showed her how to use the camera. We took pictures of the Christmas decorations on her house, of the snow in the yard, silly pictures of us making faces. We used up the whole roll in that hour, and it was the best hour I'd had in 2 years. When I left, Emily hugged me. Quick and awkward, but real. "Merry Christmas, Dad," she said. "Merry Christmas, sweetheart." Driving home, I cried for the first time since the divorce. Not sad tears, something else. Relief, maybe, or gratitude, or just the release of 2 years of holding everything in. That afternoon, I called Richard. "I saw her," I said. "I saw Emily. We took pictures together." "That's wonderful," he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. "How was it?" "Hard, good, brief, but it was something. It was a start. That's all you need, a start. Everything else builds from there." We talked for a while longer, and he invited me to visit them in Minneapolis sometime. Said I was welcome anytime, that Sophie and James had been asking about me. I took him up on that offer a few weeks later, met his family for dinner, became friends with them in a real way. They were there for me over the next year as I slowly, painfully rebuilt my relationship with Emily. It wasn't quick or easy. There were setbacks and awkward visits and times when Emily pushed me away. But I kept showing up, kept being present, kept trying. Now, 7 years later, Emily is 16. We talk regularly. I see her twice a month, sometimes more. She's interested in photography now, and I've been teaching her. We're not back to where we were before the divorce. We can't be. But we're building something new, something honest. And I never would have done that if I hadn't fallen through the ice. If Caroline hadn't been out gathering pine boughs while singing Christmas songs. If that family hadn't taken me in and shown me what I'd been running from. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if Caroline had gone out gathering earlier or later. If she'd chosen a different area of the forest. If she'd decided it was too cold and stayed in the cabin instead. I would have perished out there, 3 miles from help, surrounded by wilderness, alone at Christmas because I'd convinced myself that being alone was easier than being hurt. But she did go out. She did sing. And I did hear her. And everything that came after. Every hard conversation and every small step back toward being Emily's dad happened because of that moment. I don't believe in fate. I believe in choices and consequences and sometimes luck, good or bad. But I also believe that some moments are given to us as gifts, chances to choose differently, to stop running and start living. That's what happened to me out there in the snow. When I thought I'd perish, when I heard a Christmas song floating through the trees, when a stranger became the reason I survived. It wasn't just surviving, though. It was being given a reason to survive, being shown what life could look like if I stopped running from it. I still work as a wildlife photographer, but I'm more careful now. I tell people where I'm going. I check the weather obsessively. I don't take stupid risks, and I don't spend Christmas alone anymore. Sometimes I'm with Emily, if it's my year. Sometimes I'm with Caroline and Richard's family, who adopted me in a way I didn't know I needed. This past Christmas, Emily asked if she could come with me on a photography trip. Not in winter, she specified, but in spring, when it's safe. She wants to learn how to capture wildlife the way I do. I said yes. Obviously, I said yes. We're planning the trip now, choosing locations, researching what animals we might see. She's excited in a way that reminds me of when she was little, before everything fell apart. I'm excited too, not just for the trip, but for what it represents. That we're here, together, planning something. That she wants to spend time with me. That I'm present enough to be someone she wants to spend time with. All because I heard a Christmas song when I thought I'd perish out there. All because someone was singing. Thank you for listening to this story. It's not easy to talk about how close I came to giving up, or how long I spent running from my own life. But I share it because I think a lot of us are running from something. And sometimes we need to hear that it's worth stopping, worth turning around, worth showing up even when it's hard. If my story helps even one person make that choice, then it was worth telling. If this story meant something to you, please consider subscribing to this channel and hitting that like button. Share it with someone who might need to hear it. And let me know in the comments, what are you running from? What would it take for you to stop and turn around? Sometimes just naming it is the first step. Thanks for being here, and take care of yourself out there.